I will be coming back, and I'm bringing my new toys with me.
Alright, and we're back for part 2. So, shortly after my original upload, Austin contacted me, providing some of his feedback. He expressed that he was aware that this individual was not Mohammed bin Salman, also mentioning Baron of Arizona, indicating that he was also analyzing and drawing conclusions in the video. Now, I personally had not come to the conclusion that this individual was or was not Mohammed bin Salman. And so I had found Austin leading me to his understanding that this was not bin Salman, intriguing in that respect. He assured me that every other aspect of this particular post of his titled Karma was, to his understanding, completely accurate. He expressed that this inaccuracy in his video was part and parcel of a larger operation, and so I'd also taken away from our conversation. I'm not exactly paraphrasing him, but we'll say it was indicated to me that analytic investigators, such as myself, who weigh the precise truth value of these posts, could have an unintended impact on the larger ongoing psychological operation. And so this takes us to the very controversial topic of PSYOP. In a very old posting 6 months ago, I showed you the B2 patch in the context of discussing Baby Fist and Sergeant B. 10 months ago, I did a video focusing on Jin Moonbeagle's interpretation of Austin being in an operation where he's surrounded by jokers and clowns. In this video, I showed you this September 13th, 2020 17 post that shows these 3 patches beneath an Operation Iraqi Freedom patch. Now, the ostensible intent behind Jin Moonbeagle's meme was that Austin Steinbart lacked any particular agency, but was controlled by clowns in his immediate vicinity who are stifling his original aim with their own diversions. But I can say now, after having much more time to reflect on the mystery of Austin in his posts, I would conclude that this patch is largely symbolic of an intrinsic relationship that does not represent undue influence of individuals upon the wizard. In fact, these other individuals are features of the patch, working for this particular portion of the 17 mission. You see, the thematic element of the patch is showmanship. Wizards perform amazing feats, which are observed by others. Clowns and jesters are here to entertain. This is in contrast to what is symbolically represented by B2. I looked at this patch as more symbolic of my own philosophy and interest, that of the B2 bomber that suddenly invades your territory from the unknown, dropping its payload before disappearing again. Even relating this patch to myself at all, it would be implied that I'm in any way seemingly comparing my importance to Austin, given these patches are of similar size, though I must assure you that's not the case here. Instead, I'm simply suggesting you could look at various symbols found in imagery in your environment and find ways to relate the symbols to your own situation. I speculate the universe may synchronously create specific situations that allow you to draw these special comparisons. And so in comparing the 2 philosophical approaches, you have the hidden eagle, which is very direct, though subtle, and you have the great wizard with its clown show, which is more impressionistic. Now with Austin, remember how in 2020, he stirred up the Patriot community, getting individuals like Destin Nemos to create videos on him. He spoke of such exploits as infiltrating Luke Air Force Base and made statements regarding UFOs, which I covered in a video March of 2020. I would say his initial portfolio of videos all went towards the aim of creating strong impressions, just like this very song you're hearing now, Un Barque sur El Ushan, an impressionistic song by Ravel that gives you a sense of being on a boat out in rough seas. Now think of that mind-blowing synchronicity in a video Austin posted about Queen Marguerite of Danish monarchy being taken out somehow if Greenland wasn't sold to the US within the next 30 days. Although it was demonstrated that there's no clear convincing evidence that Austin had the power to take out the Danish monarch, a very strong impression was created in this video. Even looking at Austin's presentation style,
could jeopardize that prince's ability to rise to the throne. So an intelligence assessment is made, a deal is cut, and the US government agrees to cover up the motive behind the Vegas to make sure the prince isn't outed for being in the casino and can still take power.
So you have a very stylized presentation with variation of voice inflection, varied facial expression. And so this is consistent with a showman who can communicate on different levels. You have the more superficial level where there's a lot of flair and there's some deception. And there's that level of communication to the mainstream media, which Austin had indicated to me over the phone. You can take these types of presentations as packets to be construed in certain ways by the outsiders who stumble upon his content. Now, philosophically speaking, this is not in line with how I tend to approach information. And this is why I used symbol to try to draw the distinction between our approaches. Is this the technology symbol that describes some of the power behind why we are seeing the chess pieces move as they do in the world scene? In the Star Wars analogy, you may say that I operate under the light side of the Force, whereas Austin may be operating a bit gray, utilizing the light and dark energies to get fast results. My philosophical disagreement really comes from an understanding the ease of which an individual can become corrupted by playing in the energies of deception. Though there are some operations that are so important they may require a degree of showmanship and potential deception to increase the chances of success. And since we're speaking of Star Wars, let me remind you of the potential potency of a Joker-type character, such as Jar Jar Binks.
Now let's take a look at Jar Jar displaying some wushu. The comparison clips are taken from instructional Zhu Quan video. There's Jar Jar kipping up, Zhu Quan comparison. Jar Jar sloshing with the Zhu Quan comparison. You'll also notice how he's mysteriously aware of the droidica as it appears behind him, even though it wasn't in his line of sight and he couldn't possibly hear it over the battle. But even if Jar Jar is a secret drunken fist boxing master, that doesn't make him a Force user, right? Well, it should at least make us suspicious of his character, period. It establishes that his over-the-top childish antics are a veneer masking a more complex character than we were led to believe. But even...
And that's something I probably would say of Austin, that indeed he is a bit more of a complex character. And so you're encouraged to analyze and think more critically when viewing his presentations. You determine the overall detriment or benefit of complex characters based on the outcome of their actions. With Austin, his story is not yet complete, so we don't really know all of the outcome of his actions. I take it that I may have been assigned, synchronously or otherwise, to provide a bit of a notice of grace for those viewers in both of our individual spheres of influence. The main purpose of my videos is to make sense of complex things and complex people, and to provide ethical opinions when appropriate. Now, this time taken just to discuss Austin aside will now return to the continuation of my analysis of his karma video. So for the section of the video beginning at 109, Austin explains that the assassins were to meet with Paddock to get the appropriate arms to take out the prince. But this would just be a continuation of, per Austin, the main and accurate portion of the video. But really in its direct context, I'll just say it's like a theory about what may have happened that night. So since Austin had spoken with me, a few things happened. Freddie L reached out to me commenting, "Who is walking in that CC video from Tropicana is Mohammed bin Salman's body double." Okay, so that's a possibility. So Baron of Arizona reaches out to me and tells me quite a few interesting things about the event in Vegas in 2017. So he states that the names of the individuals guided by security are Jason Buffington and Jason Gregoric. So these are images of Jason Gregoric, who is the SVP and general manager of Seizures Entertainment in Las Vegas. So presumably that'll be this man in a suit, though given the low quality of the image, hard to be sure about that. And then you have security manager Jason Buffington. And so you see this image here, a heavyset man with hair and a beard and these types of eyes. He appears to be in his early 40s, and so this is in comparison. You see shorter hair, heavyset individual. Difficult to discern much about the eyes there. Now adding in the image here, additional observations. This individual appears to be balding more. Skin is a darker skin tone compared to this individual next to him, who's a bit more reddish. So this complexion matches this complexion more than this complexion matches this complexion. I would argue that the eyes are not quite like this. With the severe graininess of this image, I would say the skin tone is probably the most important potential differentiating feature to suggest the increased probability that this might be a body double or royal, as compared to being the security manager of Tropicana. I found this image of a Jason Buffington at the USBC Open Championships. You can appreciate here that the skin tone is a little darker for the arms. The eyes still appear as they do. A decent head of hair in comparison. So overall, I do not feel it's the same guy.
Gets sounded, and the FBI runs into the casino where the prince is at with guns and rushes him out.
Okay, and just a key moment here. So in a previous video, established this is likely a bike police, which would mean that these aren't the FBI agents. I just want to comment though that just with the scene itself and how ridiculous it is on the surface, I'm speculating the possibility of this being a retroactive alteration, so to speak. What I mean is, it doesn't really make sense for a bike police officer with poor trigger discipline to be pointing at people in the casino, escorting Tropicana management out the building. I do remember seeing this video sometime in 2018, but I did not specifically try to recall the colors of the clothes all these individuals were wearing or how they were walking. This is going to sound very incredible, but what I'm suggesting is a possibility that advanced technology has altered the actual occurrence of events, causing the video that we're seeing today to look more ridiculous and in a way debatable concerning the circumstances, to cover up for something that actually happened at some point in the past. If this were true, this would further exonerate Austin from claims of falsehood in telling the narrative if the narrative itself, from our perspective, supernaturally changes. I have to bring in this theory and this point because we are living in the world where quote-unquote new video emerges of the tower event that seemingly proves the MSM narrative of how it occurred, however, still contradicted by smoking gun video evidence that suggests an alternative telling of events. If you get a chance to look at this video, I highly recommend it. It will unsettle you to a certain degree. But just knowing that we live in this type of world where things like this are possible casts older controversial events in a bit of a different light. Okay, so I'll go a bit quicker with the rest of this material as brevity is the spice of life. I'll start off by saying I did analyze every other portion of Austin's video and determined I could find no specific factual inaccuracies. And so in my studies, for the first time, I just drew some conclusions about the connectedness of various events surrounding Crown Prince bin Salman. So just note the point in time where bin Salman had his shakedown at the Ritz-Carlton. So that was November 4th, 2017, merely a month after the Las Vegas event. Austin mentions that someone hacked into Jeff Bezos' phone, completely exposing an affair the Amazon CEO was having using the Pegasus software. Now it's important to note, this occurred during the Trump administration, and the media coverage did not emphasize the fact that a foreign government had used this Israeli technology to hack personal information from a very important American citizen, and how that could possibly be construed as an act of war. So it's noted in The Guardian that columnist Jamal Khashoggi of the Washington Post was taken out in October 2018, and this was just 5 months before the hack of the Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos. The hack was facilitated through WhatsApp communications between Bezos and bin Salman. Here they are pictured together. Note the receding hairline of bin Salman in contrast in comparison to our discussion of the individual in the video. The Times of India. Forensic report reveals Israeli spyware Pegasus behind Jeff Bezos' phone hack. So this was a pretty big deal. We did not really hear much from the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who was the Attorney General at that time, with his term ending November 7, 2018. Are we really to trust Sessions? April 10, 2018.
Do you think it's acceptable for our government to do nothing when a foreign leader uses a military cyber weapon against an American citizen? I sure hope not. I mean, yikes, right?
Now regarding Jamal Khashoggi, I'm on a website called noagendaquery.com where transcript excerpts of the show are displayed. An important note about that man: Britain knew of the kidnap plot and begged Saudi Arabia to stop. Per source express.co.uk, Jamal Khashoggi was about to disclose details of Saudi Arabia's use of chemical weapons in Yemen. Close sources to him said last night. The orders, intelligence sources say, did not emanate directly from the de facto ruler, Crown Prince, and it is not known if he was aware of them. These details include primary orders to capture Mr. Khashoggi and bring him back to Saudi Arabia for questioning. The misleading image that has been created of Khashoggi covers up more than it reveals. The motivation may have been about getting rid of proof that Saudi Arabia was using chemical weapons in that region. According to The Independent, there was a plot to kidnap someone else. Saudi authorities planned a similar kidnapping plot against Khalid bin Farhan al-Saud, a Saudi prince living in exile in Germany, just 10 days before Khashoggi went missing. The CIA allegedly has a recording of the Saudi prince demanding Khashoggi be silenced. It has been said that the Crown Prince gave orders to silence Khashoggi as soon as possible in a call which was monitored by the US agency. Trump said the CIA had not definitively concluded that the Crown Prince was responsible and said that he would stand by Saudi's leadership because it was a key US ally. And I tell you what, the Crown Prince hates it more than I do, Trump said without providing further detail. It's important to note that Khashoggi was in a complex social situation as he was entwined with Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood and also Turkey's ruling AK party.
And he's already been trained to believe that he is untouchable and that he can use military resources to go after anyone he wants, including American citizens, and that there will never be consequences.
But of note, I think Khashoggi was just a resident who wasn't a full US citizen. Though still, that does not reduce the significance of this atrocity.
It is going to be extremely problematic if we let this journalist butchering savage continue to run wild for the next 40 years. So this leads me to the Trump angle, because I've been trying to figure this one out. What did Trump know about the Vegas thing? Obviously, he was president. Was he involved in the cover-up? Personally, I spent a lot of time in 2016 helping Trump get elected, so I don't really want to believe that he would do anything like that. But something happened recently that really makes me wonder. Trump endorsed Sheriff Joe Lombardo, the exact sheriff who helped the FBI cover up the Vegas shooting.
Okay, so now let's cover this. Regarding the situation, let's just look at the following facts. Per NBC News, Joe Lombardo won the Nevada GOP primary. It's noted that Lombardo won 43% of the vote, while his opponent, Joey Gilbert, got in 22% for the Republican Party. The article states that Lombardo had consistently led the broad field Republican candidates in the polls, and he was already far ahead by the time Trump endorsed him in late April. And so if this is true, this may explain a motivation of Trump just choosing to pick a winner rather than the candidate who's truly best for the job, or at least likely to be a turncoat. Specifically, Clark County gave Lombardo a lead of 45.5% to 23.5%. Although at this point in time, not all the votes had been counted. Gilbert claimed following the results that, quote, "I smell a lawsuit because it stinks." Observing social media, I determined that there is a general consensus that Joe Lombardo is a RINO. This particular card looks at his position on gun rights, noting that he supported universal background checks, supported limits on ammunition capacity. This is a big liberal point. And he also opposed constitutional carry. By his support of these three positions, I conclude just on the surface that he would be classified as a RINO. It's worthy to note that the Republican GOP for Nevada specifically selected Joey Gilbert over Lombardo, and this is presumably because of this understanding that Lombardo may be a turncoat. May 21st, there was an actual Save Nevada Freedom Tour conference with Dr. Simon Gold, Michael Flynn, Tom Rentz, among a few others, in support of Joey Gilbert. And so this was a contingent of well-known conservative media personalities who were bucking against the choice of Donald Trump and in support of Gilbert. This is not something I've observed before. Liberty Report just happened to interview this candidate March 11, 2022. Let's look at his take on the current health racket.
Go home, come back to us when you're so sick you can't breathe and we have to ventilate you so we can make our 37K, all right? This was all a plan. And I'll tell you something, the doctors that conspired with him, the healthcare professionals that knew it, because I'm tell you something, I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor. It took, you just saw Brian Ardis walk by, all right? Yeah. All you have to do is click on Remdesivir's own freaking study, click on it for Gilead, and see it killed 50% of the people.
Okay, and so you see what he's going to say there. And so my immediate conclusion is that this individual is a very passionate firebrand for the truth in general and in revealing suppressed information. But I wonder, did DJT factor in the fact that he is this type of firebrand in a decision not to support him, really out of concern of just trying to choose the candidate that's most likely to win in the end, a compromise of sorts? Or was Trump compelled to endorse just due to the fact that he himself is compromised? Looking at more Twitter sentiments, Nevada does not want Lombardo. He is establishment RINO trash who's pushing for gun control, red flag laws, and forced Vs. Elizabeth says, I think stupid RINO Lombardo won for governor of Nevada. Americans aren't learning their lessons. Nevada Mad Max states, Joey, where are your signs in central Nevada? All I'm seeing is RINO Lombardo signs. Get some signs up on US 95 from Vegas to Reno. LFG. And so you get these entries searching Lombardo, Nevada RINO. Searching Joey Gilbert RINO yields posts also talking about Lombardo being a RINO. I will be voting for Joey Gilbert. I love Trump, but Lombardo is a RINO. So in Trump's April 27th endorsement of Lombardo, makes note of the opinion that Joe will fiercely protect our under siege Second Amendment, but it seems to be contradicted by certain other provisions that he has supported. Sam says, Joey Gilbert supporters plan to rally against Lombardo, who they are calling RINO Joe, this is back December 9, 2021, at his campaign office opening in Reno. So as you see, the sentiment is very evident that Lombardo is considered a RINO, Gilbert's not considered a RINO. Trump still endorsed Lombardo. Trump supported Dr. Oz, who many are considering to be a virtue signaling RINO as well. I will conclude, in the language of a soft double negative, it is not unreasonable to question Donald Trump's intentions given what we have seen so far, and that is what Austin appears to be doing here. Certainly this video by Austin Steinbart is a think for yourself video where you're asked to discern carefully, just as he had originally christened the 17 movement as a think for yourself campaign. And we should all continue to think for ourselves, even questioning previously held sacred cows. Okay, I shared what I need to share for now. Peace.